welcome to episode 13 of the Recruitment Intelligence podcast. Today we're joined by Gavin Speirs, CEO of Solutions Driven. If you have watched or listened to the podcast before, you'll have seen Gavin on there. Hi Gavin, how are you?
Hi Claire, good afternoon. Well, thanks, how are you?
I am doing well. We are recording on a Friday afternoon, so we're all geared up for the weekend, all nice and relaxed. So, yeah.
Good. Excellent.
So, Gavin, we are here today. We're going to be talking about the recruitment and the talent acquisition shortages that we've been seeing across the whole industry recently. Ourselves at Solutions Driven, we've just hired, I think it was 9 new people in the last kind of month or so. So considering the last 18 months that we've had, it's really great that we're growing, getting new people into the business, and especially we're hoping to go back into the office soon. So it'll be nice to see some new faces.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess my first question that I want to put to you today is, why have we hired all these new people at Solutions Driven? What's changed in the wider market that's driven us to this point?
No, and it's a valid point, Claire. I mean, I think a couple of things. So first of all, really fortunate to have hired the people that we have hired. I think they've added tremendous value already into the business, and it's great to see. I think a couple of things. I mean, I think first of all, our model is split sales and delivery, so that gives us a bit more insight and predictability into our current pipeline with our clients, but also with prospects. So I think that gives us pipeline visibility, but really twofold: one, to support demand that we have right now, and two, to support demand that we believe is going to be there over the next 3-6 months. I think secondly, some of the people that we've hired are TSSs, talent sourcing specialists, and other TDSs, talent delivery specialists. So really that combination and the pair of a TSS and a TDS working together also increases our output, to support the demand that we have. But that's really I think we've seen demand growing over the last 6-7 months. Wanted to make sure that it was sustainable, and have hired to support that demand.
Great, yeah. It has definitely been quite a busy few months in Solutions Driven. So yeah, it's great to have more people come and join in the team. One thing that has been clear though is that this process of hiring these people hasn't been as easy as it perhaps was in the past. And why has it been more difficult, and in what ways has that changed from, say, a year ago?
And I mean, it hasn't been easy, right? And hiring recruiters was never easy, but it was always easier than the complex client hiring needs, that we support. So we typically support clients filling difficult roles, confidential roles that have been open for quite some time, roles in remote locations, and that was always perceived more challenging. I think, but it hasn't been easy. So we've really had to dig deep in terms of almost use our own process, almost use our own sourcing methodologies, as well as engagement to engage potential candidates. I think a couple of things. I mean, I think I posted on LinkedIn a few weeks ago around right now there is more global demand for recruiters and more recruitment or recruiter job ads than there are software engineers. And for years, many people have thought software engineering is the kind of the hard to find skill. So right now, that would say recruiters are harder to find than software engineers, which I think is valid. I mean, I think why is that the case? I think many organisations downsized their talent acquisition or recruitment function last year through COVID. It typically happens, one of the first functions to unfortunately get hit. I think then there's been pent up demand, and I think that's really started to speed up over the last couple of months specifically. So all of a sudden, you've got two things happening. You've got companies hiring recruiters, but also companies hiring other roles that recruiters would fill. So it's almost the kind of double whammy of build up that's caused that. So I think that's one of the reasons. I think secondly, if you're a recruiter and you're busy in your own organisation, it's maybe also not the best time to think about making a move. So you've got the other challenge there of I'm too busy right now to think about something else. So I think all that together has been has been a combination. I think we put out a post this morning on LinkedIn that talked about, is it the war for talent or is it the war for talent acquisition? And I really do think that over the last couple of years, I think recruiting as a skill set has become more highly regarded. And historically, the perception of recruitment was it was fairly easy. You posted ads, you talked to candidates. Whereas I think that's become a real core discipline, and also, a discipline or skill set that many organisations now need.
Definitely, and I think this time last year, I had written a piece about the stages of recruitment, and there was the analog age, there was the spray and pray, there was the digital age, and I think we predicted then that recruiters over the next few years were going to become more respected, and the profession was going to become more in demand, and obviously that has very much came to fruition over the last kind of couple of months. Yeah,
absolutely.
Definitely. Why is this happening? Are we seeing different behaviour from candidates than we would have been perhaps a few months ago?
Absolutely. In fact, this week I've spoken to a couple of clients and prospects who, are really seeing candidate behaviours change, and candidates considering different things. So I think this time last year, we talked about, unfortunately, active candidates were more active because they were job hunting, but passive candidates were more passive because they were maybe scared to, look, and the grass wasn't greener, etc. Mm-hmm. I think now, especially in the last couple of months, we've seen a lot of candidate interest. So when we're approaching candidates for roles, including the roles for ourselves and client roles, there is what I would call a lot of curiosity. So people are willing to listen. People are willing to and are keen to understand what are other companies doing from a work-life balance perspective, from a remote working perspective, from a flexibility perspective. And I think the challenge we're seeing, and I'm sure many others are seeing as well, is it's that curious to committed piece. So, historically, I think it was easier to get true candidate commitment, whereas I think now, not only do you need to work harder at that, you need to really sure that you do have the candidate commitment. So we've talked about three things. We've talked about there's a level of curiosity. Then you feel as if you're converting the candidate, they're willing to discuss more with you. But it's really about getting that true candidate commitment to ensure they're bought into, the reason why they're interested in the role. So that's definitely, been a change. And I think the other thing that's, if I look at it, I would have said 3-4 years ago when we were approaching candidates, in particular for client opportunities, they were maybe more interested in things like how did the company perform last quarter? What percentage of bonus was paid out? What are the growth plans of the organisation? Whereas now, I think we're seeing more questions around: do they offer that hybrid? Do they have a sustainability process or policy? What are they doing from a diversity perspective? So almost the things that were perceived nice to have a year and a half, 2 years ago, I think have actually become much more of a must-have, in that candidate decision process.
Definitely, and obviously we're speaking about recruiters and talent acquisition candidates in the moment, but I take it this is happening across the whole market, across every industry.
Absolutely. I mean, we're speaking in our team. The majority of recruiters are feeling the same, issues and challenges. And I think what we're trying to do to I guess overcome that is really focus on that candidate journey and that engagement, and make sure that we've really assessed how committed are they to the opportunity, and also how well does that opportunity match, to their planned requirements.
How has this change been affecting, hiring managers and recruiters for recruiters? So how has it been affecting internal teams?
So I think there's a couple of things. I mean, I think so as the market's changed, companies are, certainly my kind of feeling right now, there are companies hiring lots of people, probably more than they expected to at this point in time of, post-pandemic. And secondly, there's a shortage of recruiters. For the recruiters that are in role, I think they're also experiencing almost a reduction in applications. So we've seen quite a few of our clients saying, when we used to post on, website X, we used to get this number of quality candidates. We're now only getting, a less number than that. And I think that's logical because, again, I think just now, there's almost the, who's the buyer and who's the seller, and is it a candidate-driven market or is it an employer-driven market? And it's interesting because I would have thought at this time in the pandemic's journey, it would have still been an employer's market. Whereas I think in reality it's a candidate-driven market. And I think as a result of that, candidates are probably less likely to quickly put themselves out there and say, yes, I'm interested, i.e. apply for a role. So I can understand the logic of applications being down just now, because if you're a candidate who, sees there's opportunities out there, why would you want to kind of, wave the flag and say, I'm interested, contact me. So I think as a result, recruiters are feeling the pain in applications being down, number of recs being up, less support internally, but ultimately hiring managers still needing the roles filled, from the business impact. So it's a bit of a melting pot just now in terms of, pressure from the hiring manager on the business side, pressure because people are trying to hire more recruiters, and then also pressure because the candidate behaviour, the proactivity of a candidate being interested is less than it was, for example, this time last year.
Yeah. So what have they been doing in that case then? How are talent acquisition, internal recruiters, how are they trying to overcome this problem?
Probably very similar to anyone in the recruitment space right now. I mean, I think what they're trying to do is, make sure they have enough recruiters in place to support the demand, because yourself, as soon as the number of recs per recruiter goes above a certain level, the impact then is quality, to the internal hiring manager. I think we are seeing many of our clients really focus on what I called the nice to haves a year and a half ago that have now become must haves. Do we have a compelling candidate value proposition? Is our candidate journey as good as it could be? So again, all the things that was we'll get to that when we've got time, I think are now becoming, absolute priorities. So that would be, and again, continuing to be, we're seeing clients being more creative and resourceful, than they were maybe, 1-2 years ago as an example.
All those thought pieces in the middle of the pandemic that said, it is an employer's market at the moment, but you need to keep your employer brand, you need to keep your employee value proposition at the top of its game. They're all really coming to fruition just now, aren't they?
Without a doubt, and I think, many clients are really evaluating what do we want to look like as an organisation post-pandemic, from a hybrid, from a way of working, how will that impact productivity, efficiency, etc. So yeah, it is all the things we talked or the world talked about a year ago of, you'll need to consider these going forward. Is absolutely happening for sure.
Yeah, we all had a crystal ball.
Absolutely.
So obviously, we've got clients that are coming to us that they might have came to us previously with roles that they would have considered quite business critical. And now they're coming to us with roles that they're saying, I would normally be able to fill this internally really easily, but I'm finding that very difficult just now. How are we managing to fill these roles? What differentiates the process that we're using to the process that our clients are using?
And I think going back to that point on, why are clients coming to us just now, either saying, these are roles we used to be able to fill, but we can't, or, can we take one of your team, for a 9-12 month period as an example. So I think going back to your question of why can we help in that area? So I think, there's nothing magic about any individual part of our process. The magic really comes around how we put it together and the team and the intelligence that we build around that. I think the first and foremost thing is, and we've actually had this feedback over the last couple of weeks. I think right now clients really want to rely on someone they can trust. And, it's important that regardless if it's us or any other recruiter, that you work with someone that you've trusted over a long period of time. Because I think right now, the importance of hiring and also the kind of changing environment from a candidate behaviour, you really want to have a partner that you've worked with and can trust. I think secondly, how do we do that? I think it's around accountability. So I think rather than hoping that we get to the right result, it's about breaking that process down and making sure we're doing the right things at each stage of that recruitment process. So before we start, do we really have it clear? How important is or how flexible is the client from a remote working perspective, etc. Because again, these are the things that we're seeing and hearing other clients getting bitten by, at the end of the process. For example, I spoke to a client a few weeks ago now. They were hiring a VP of sales themselves directly, and the requirement was they wanted the person to be in the office a couple of days a week and then flexibility for the other half of the week. The candidate that they got to, and the candidates knew that, the candidate they got to offer then said, actually, for a change of heart, I want 5 days remote working. Now, that's in theory, you can say that's doable. But if all the other leadership of that business are in the office for a few days a week, how does that then impact that new start, getting to know the business, etc. And the candidate then decided to reject the offer. So, even though the organisation had defined that, there are a lot of moving parts. So I think going back to how we help, I think it's about breaking down the process and really making sure that each stage of that process is clear on what to expect by when. I think the other part for us is the intelligence and I guess the 6 Fs that motivate candidates. We are definitely spending more time on really assessing, is this candidate right? Not just from an experience or behaviours perspective, but from a motivation perspective. Have we asked the kind of hidden questions? Do we really know what's going on in that candidate's life to make sure they are, committed to where they need to be to, etc. So I think 2 things. I think breaking down and making sure that each part of the process we're doing the right things along the way, and secondly, making sure that we're really assessing, that candidate motivation to minimise, any potential flags or changes.
Okay. I have a bonus question. I think that we've kind of discussed most things, but you'd mentioned kind of longer term outsourcing there. So I think it was, did you say 6 to 12 weeks? Can you tell me a little bit more about that and tell me how it's slightly different, or if it is different from RPO, recruitment process outsourcing?
Yeah, so in 6 to 12 months is probably the kind of standard. I mean, I think so there's a lot of RPO that's gone on over the last 10, 15 years. I think one of the challenges with RPO typically is it's very long term. So a client will sign up for 3, 4, 5 years depending on the size of the client. And I think right now, even though the market's buoyant in quite a few areas, there's probably still a bit of a nervousness around how forward planning can we take based on what's happened over the last 18 months. Therefore, we're seeing, and I think many others are seeing the same, that almost this piece of embedded, recruitment support, or what we would define as almost external talent acquisition support, where a client says, we need ongoing help, and we need a more partnered approach than a company that just fills 1 or 2 roles for us, because we want them to really understand our culture, we want them to be branded as us, etc. So very similar to RPO, but probably just more around bringing the right person to support that right client at a point in time, helping them either scale, hire, open in another location. And I think the value that we have is, we talk about RPI, so the category we created last year, Recruitment Process Intelligence. So for us right now, it's 2 things. It's using RPI to fill assignments for clients, but also training our team in RPI to support customers who need that embedded, recruiter for a 6, 12 month project as an example. And I think the value or the benefits to client is someone who really gets to know their organization, someone who becomes a true part and extension of their team, but also someone who can support and coach and educate them, on what we are seeing, across the market. Because one of the challenges for any internal recruiter is they hear a lot from different candidates. So they're speaking to different candidates every single day, but they maybe don't hear as much from what other companies are experiencing. Whereas I think, that embedded recruiter can come with, different views on, what they've seen in other clients, as an example.
Yeah, just a bit of extra outside knowledge and an oversight of the market. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great. Well, Gavin, I think that we have covered most things regarding the recruitment shortage, or at least what we know about the recruiter shortage. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or any points?
No, nothing really. I mean, I think just the point we talked about earlier. I think there's been so much hype over the years around the war for talent and the global shortage, and and I think clients or hiring teams who are listening to this is just remember how challenging it is for recruiters right now. It's probably one of the most challenging times I've seen in the last 15, 20 years, and that's not an excuse because at the end of the day, ultimately we still need to deliver to the clients. But I think it's about selecting the right recruiter to help you, having the right process, but making sure that you are aware of what is changing in the market and you do understand, for example, the curiosity to committed and what is your organisation doing to really flush that out. But it's certainly a complex hiring time for sure. But I'm delighted to help anyone or have a discussion with anyone that wants to hear more.
Absolutely. And I will put a link. Gavin has just put a post up today about the war for talent, or the war for talent acquisition, and then there's a poll attached to that that's got the opinions of various HR and TA leaders. So I'll put a link to that underneath the podcast if anyone wants to take a look at the results. Gavin, thank you so much for coming on this afternoon.
Good. I hope you have a good weekend.
And you. Bye bye.
Great. Bye bye.